like video recorded, right?
It is video and audio, and then we can choose if you don't like the video, we can choose to just do audio.
That's fine.
All right, let's hit the play button. Welcome to another episode of Talking Filthy. I'm here with Erica from TacMobility. What's up, Erica?
Hey.
What's up?
Hi, my friend.
So, Erica, you also go by, I've seen it, I don't know if you go by this, Knife Girl.
The knife girl.
The
Yeah.
Knife Girl, because
Mhm.
you do stuff with Ravencrest Tactical out of Mesa. Most cops know what they are. They're the out the front knives, correct?
Yep. 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 That's how I got started in this whole industry. That's how TacMobility was born, is selling switchblades to cops.
Cool. So let's talk about TAC mobility. That's what we're here to really talk about, right? Um, so TAC mobility, its end goal is to help cops. In a
I
nutshell.
mean, in a nutshell, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I guess if we kind of like take that view and kind of go up a little bit higher, so maybe like a 10,000, 20,000 foot view, the mission that I have, that Tech Mobility has, is to bridge the gap between communities of color specifically, but with police officers. And the way that we do that is through supporting the mental and physical health of officers, so that, we have officers that are able to arrive on scene not stressed to the max, super unsupported by administrations, feeling like shit, trying to like bring solutions to like real big community traumas. Like that's a big job.
Yeah. And so you are based out of the Valley, correct?
Yep.
Phoenix area, and you with Ravencrest, you've had a lot of contact with a lot of cops. And so you're not new to cops. You know exactly, in a nutshell, without being a cop, you know what a cop thinks and how they're going to respond to things, the baggage that we carry on our
Yeah.
shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've worked with over 100,000 officers since 2013. So I've had, and this is across the United States, obviously. And I've had exposure to every type of cop, different task forces, security, military police, every face of law enforcement I've had some type of interaction with, even with dispatch and administration as well. So it's it's very cool. Like it's a very unique and privileged opportunity that I have to know so many people, because not a lot of people get to know law enforcement intimately. But then also, you take the average police officer in any given city, they're typically only going to be exposed to cops just like them in their specific context. So it's very interesting how different police officers are in New York or Virginia versus Wyoming versus New Mexico and Washington. Like they're all just, everyone is very different.
Yeah, there's some commonalities about the job, but
Yeah.
demographically, geographically, there's a lot of differences, and you get exposed to all of that with TAC mobility.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So break it down for us. What do you do? I see one, you have social media, Attack Mobilities on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You post a lot of stuff about anxiety, breathing, some interpersonal type of management, I guess.
Interpersonal management. That was wordsmithed really well.
Not bad, not bad for a Marine, right?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a few components to the training. One, physical recovery is really important, and we can talk about that. Mental recovery and just overall brain health is really important. And then there's this component to self awareness that not too many first responders get the privilege to like really understand and tackle, because it's it only happens when you have time. Like to be able to sit with your thoughts and to be able to assess your body and what it's emotionally going through, what it's physically going through. All of that stuff takes time. And that was one of the things that I learned about law enforcement is you don't have that when you're working all the time, or when you're trying to juggle having a family, or when your shift keeps changing and you have to try and like be an adult when you're not working. So So teaching people how to understand themselves better will enable officers to have like a more like abundant life outside of their job.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I'm diving into right now is the difference between fire and police, and
Mm.
the way they construct their training, their resiliency, their mental health. For
Mhm.
instance, just a quick, side note is when firefighters are on scene and they're on scene for X amount of time, they have to be come off and be replaced for X amount of time and go through, their, I forget what they call it, like recovery vehicle, where they get hydrated, IVs if they need it, and all these other things. And then there's the fact that they work 24 on and they get a few days off.
Yeah.
There's a huge contrast, I think, from where cops just we run this car until it breaks. Whether it's the agency doing it to you, the politics, or the cops themselves. So you kind of fill in the gaps, and hopefully what you do and what others hopefully will do is kind of shift that paradigm where you got to repair the body, right? And that's kind of what you do.
Well, you know what's interesting about you saying that is fire has almost the same suicide rate as law enforcement. So
I didn't know
while,
that.
yeah, suicide is huge within first responders. It is this epidemic. Law enforcement, firefighting, nurses, that those numbers are climbing as well. It is this constant exposure to traumas and how these traumas have evolved to just unbelievable heights. And we're still limited by our capacity as human organisms to handle the amount of exposure to these types of traumas. So while they do have some of those things in place, those numbers are equally as high
Mm,
as law enforcement. So there's a lot of challenges that different sectors have, but a lot of things that you can learn from. I definitely think being able to take time off is, uh, I mean, it's so important. And one of the things that I am working on right now is trying to develop some ways to propose bills where police officers are able to take these routine, significant amount of time off. So if you have an entire week off in a month, the amount of recovery that your body can actually experience is exponentially higher than if you're working 4 10-hour shifts a week and you only have 3 days to rest, which the first day is spent just trying to fucking like
yeah,
normalize and feel like a regular person. And then your next 2 days, it's like, how much adult shit can we stuff into 2 days? And then it's like, how rested was the physical body? Like, how rested was the brain? So I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of restructuring how law enforcement works.
yeah, I think that's a great point. It's crazy to me that there's still agencies that do 5/8. 2 days off this job is in fucking insane to me.
Yeah.
I'm actually thinking I did a ride along with Honolulu PD years ago, and they do 3/12s, I guess, and then they make up the extra hours administratively somehow. And they loved it. They loved the 3 12-hour shifts. I think 12 hours isn't, if you're in good physical shape, 12 hours is not too dangerous to be on the road, in one pop. I don't know that 24 hours like firefighters is a good idea. I'd have to see some
No,
research, but I
no.
definitely, yeah, I think that's freaking dangerous for cops.
Well,
One,
I think it's even more dangerous because most police officers have really poor sleeping cycles. So they're typically only going to be getting about 4 to 6 hours of sleep, and that sleep is going to be really shitty and kind of like sporadic, up and down, moving around. So they're not getting quality sleep. So to give them a 24-hour shift, that is a disaster, I think. In my
yeah,
professional opinion, that is a disaster waiting to happen. So
for
I
sure.
can't imagine that would be like,
Yeah,
oh
I
God, that would be
I
terrible.
know. I don't know of any proposals for that. I was just kind of contrasting, like, I don't think that's a good idea, but I do think 3/12s with 4 days off is a hell of a lot better,
Yeah.
than 4/10s and definitely 5/8s. Sleep is so important. It's taken me 9, almost 10 months of retirement to actually, like, holy shit, I sleep good now. Like, that shit has been going on for so long, living on 4 broken ass hours of sleep. And that's, not taking into consideration if you're an assignment, it's on call out too, or whatever the case is. And then you have to fit in physical training to keep yourself in shape and all those other things. So, great point. I think shift management for law enforcement is something that really needs to be considered. Taking that time away, because especially if cops are on the road, especially the patrol officers, they see a lot of shit and it adds up in one week, you know.
Totally. Totally.
So what else do you do? Like as far as your program, I see a lot of stretching, a lot of yoga style. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like.
Um, I wouldn't call it yoga, because yoga is going to be incorporating a lot of different Eastern principles, a lot of meditation,
Okay.
things like that. And then it's kind of like different stretches that are sort of strung together to like equal a practice or a session. So it's a little bit different than that. But in the sense that, like, when you see someone stretching and you don't have a lot of reference, sure, it can totally look like
Yeah.
doing yoga. Like that's yeah, I get that a lot. And then also, my educational background is coming from that place. So, essentially, what the stretching is about is your human body is constantly communicating with itself, right? And that is all jump started by your brain. So at any given moment, you're taking in lots and lots of information. You might be singular focused on what's happening in front of you at any given time, but there's still lots of information coming in. The hardness of the floor, how your clothing feels against your skin, if there's a smell in the air, far away sounds, whatever. So your brain is constantly taking in information and it's prioritizing and categorizing that information. So if you're in a extreme environment, like being a police officer, the information that your brain is taking in is going to be traumatic in nature because people aren't calling you to like go hang out and kick it, right?
Right.
They're
Yeah. Yeah.
they're calling you because they couldn't find some balance and order in their life and things have escalated to a point where they need to involve public safety and law enforcement. So when you arrive on scene, your brain is taking in all types of information and your brain is deciding what to do with that. So if you're in any state of hypervigilance, which any officer at any given time is feeling that, your brain is signaling to the body, okay, we need to be on alert. We need to be ready to go at the drop of a dime or the drop of a hat. And in order to do that, it creates a lot of chemical release in the body. And these chemicals are associated with arousal, with glucose, being able to move quickly, cortisol, adrenaline, pain numbing agents, things like that, so that you can do whatever kind of risky or dangerous task that's in front of you. And the body is not meant to experience those chemicals all the time because those chemicals also break down the body. And this is kind of where that adrenaline fatigue starts to come in is, man, I've had so many bursts of adrenaline, call after call after call after call, and your body will begin to fatigue. It will begin to get tired and go, okay, we've been up here however many hours in the day. We need to like turn things down a notch. And this is where officers are experiencing isolation, feeling numb to emotions, feelings, and family, because the body needs to kind of like conserve its energy and sort of like hunker down and repair itself from the influx of chemicals. One way to help repair the body is through metabolizing those stress hormones through movement. One of the first things that kind of goes out the window when people are stressed or depressed is movement, because the body again wants to
Yeah.
conserve that energy. So we kind of have to look at the system and go, okay, how much of my day has been spent in this arousal or this hyper arousal state? What do I need to do to bring some balance to it? So we can stretch for sure. That's going to aid in just general range of motion, right? So like if I'm in my tactical vest all day long and everything is pulled forward because your body has this underlying fascial system, which is kind of like a body suit that you have on, it is smart and it's adaptive. So what it does is it goes, oh, hey, you spent most of your day like this. We're going to think for ourselves and we're going to strengthen this position through the fibers in our fascial system because apparently you want to be like this. So we're going to help take some of the work out and stay this way. So by stretching and by moving, you can actually like repair that information and those signals that say, hey, let's stay like this because this is what causes pain. And you can start to undo some of that. But then we also incorporate the importance of breathing. It's typically considered a very passive type of recovery method, but it's the fastest, most accessible way for you to balance your heart rate, which informs your brain, hey, we can begin recovery. You can start releasing different hormones that can repair the body. So it's important to balance breathing with movement in order to balance out your organism. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's a very well put way
That's
of.
a lot of information.
No, no, it's awesome because a lot of cops think like that, like, oh God, I just feel like shit, and my body's, even right now after 20 some years, 25 years in a uniform and tactical gear, I'm taking that time to kind of put my body back.
Yeah,
So you talk about in terms of the day, and now you multiply that by the weeks and the months and then 20 plus years.
that's
That's
right.
why you have these old, I'm being kind of comical here, not offensive, old, grumpy ass, out of shape, can hardly move cops
Yeah.
because we've been, bringing that body in. And I think when you put the term movement, I like that because it's not just about physical fitness,
Yeah,
it's
I don't
also
give a
about,
shit. Yeah,
right,
don't give a shit about fitness. I really don't, which is probably not a popular opinion, but it's about movement. Your body is
right.
built to move.
And I've had the opportunity in my career when I was tactical supervisor on the SWAT team. We did a lot of studies on breathing and how that affects getting that oxygen in and controlling that adrenaline,
Mhm.
kinesiology, how the body moves. And so I think you're spot on. We talk about it at that, I like to say, split second decision, how
Mhm.
important it is to have all that. But then we don't do anything afterwards. We don't do anything when we go home. We don't do anything when the shift ends. I shouldn't say we don't do anything. We don't do the things that we need to do to repair that body. We do a lot to prepare for that moment of stress, but not after the fact. And so I think it's super, super interesting how you put that into context about, yeah, the fight is over. Now let's repair that body. Let's repair that mind. Let's get some oxygen and movement going. So would you say that's kind of your core focus when you're kind of sharing that, whether it's in person or virtual for you when you're doing training?
Um, it really is this mix of the body and the mind. Those are equal focus of mine because the two are interconnected so intimately that you don't have a way to separate them, which has been a big myth and misconception of a lot of people is that oh, we can focus on the body and just do fitness and be like fit as
Mm,
fuck, right? But we don't have to take care of our brain health or the opposite, I'm going to be so in touch with my feelings and my emotions and my mental landscapes, but I don't have to move my physical body or take care of it, whether that's hormonal supplement or stretching, whatever. So it's when we try and separate the two that we sort of miss out on this big opportunity to have this holistic well-being, which is the goal of life is to love yourself and your experience. And that's kind of like a taboo and weird thing for police because your jobs are so hyper focused on safety and danger, and it's going that's not sustainable. That's not sustainable. It's also not enjoyable. So if
yeah.
you've been a police officer for a certain amount of time, say that usually it's around the 7, 8, 9 year mark where you're just starting to get real fucking burnt out on just how your body overall feels. And then you get folks that are into their careers, like into the teens, into the 20s, and then they stop working. The body doesn't know what to do without these large amounts of stress mentally and also these large amounts of physical stress as in uniform. This is where we see officers having heart attacks, having strokes, killing themselves because the body hasn't had any practice surviving and living without those elements present. So it's a mixture of the mindset development and brain health is just as important as the physical health, because again, your brain is what is communicating to the body what to do. So if my brain senses danger, because at the end of the day, I'm a human animal, my body is going to grow larger to give the appearance of dominance, and that equates to muscular tension, right?
Mhm.
So if I can't control my mind, then I can't control my machine. That's where the whole saying of TacMobility, controlling the mind and the machine, comes into play. Is they are they are connected. They are the same.
Mhm. And one of the things too that really is kind of at the forefront for me the last few years is, so all this is going on in your workday, and where does it come out? As soon as you fucking get home
Yeah.
to the people you love the most, and you don't realize it. Like I was a complete, and many people know me, like I was a fucking dick, just all the time. And you don't. It's so much so that that tension that you were talking about in your mind and in your body has nowhere to go. So when you get home and you're kind of in that mode, like I'm not in danger anymore, it just feels like your brain is scrambling. You want to just be left alone. You want to
Right.
go in neutral. You don't want
Right.
to be bothered. I want to watch fucking Judge Wapner and just zone out for about an hour.
Right.
But you don't realize the damage you're causing to your family. So I think these things you're talking about, I wish we'd have learned them a long time ago. I wish I would have learned that, how to manage that stuff. Um, we spent a lot of time how to deal with some suspect on a traffic stop and how to not get killed, but we never really trained on how to not end up killing ourselves, either,
Yeah.
figuratively or whatever. So I find that really interesting how you put that.
Well, so this is relationships are a big passion of mine because it's, for so long I was on the outside just doing a lot of research and listening to a lot of stories and relationships and divorce rates and just that pain of like your spouse leaving you or the guilt of being an asshole when you're home,
Yeah.
and abuse rates, all different types of things. It's going, man, I learned to develop compassion around this area because what a lot of folks don't understand is those chemicals. So your body, in order for you to feel love and connection, your body has to produce certain types of hormones. Okay, hypervigilance and love are oil and water. They don't work well because hypervigilance is associated with threat and love is
Survival.
associated with
Yeah.
safety.
Right.
Okay, so you have certain chemicals associated with that hypervigilance to get the body aroused, and you have certain chemicals associated with rest and safety that bring the body down to like some homeostasis types of range. Okay, so when you've spent all shift practicing excreting certain types of hormones, guess what's depleted, right? So then you
Yeah.
get home and your family, they haven't been like feeling hyper vigilant all day long. I mean, obviously there's states of arousal that we all go through, but that hasn't been there. They haven't had this dire life threatening experience. So they are just kind of going fluid throughout their day and ready to kind of, oh, okay, cool, dad's home or husband's home or wife's home. Let's connect, right? Because they're in this place of safety. And then you show up and the body is going like, what? Like you just tried to slam the brakes really, really hard on the body's system and it goes, we need a minute. We need a fucking minute. And then
Yeah.
on top of that too, one of the things that I teach in my class, so we do in-service training, and one of the things that I want to help people understand is there's this little exercise we can do right now. I want you to look around your room and I want you to find an object that is maybe 5 feet away from you. Okay. Imagine that that object that's 5 feet away from you is a dangerous person or possibly dangerous person. Is 5 feet too close?
Yeah.
You don't know if they have a weapon on you or
Right.
on
Yeah.
them. Like you're not sure like what they're about. They seem a little erratic with their thoughts. Like you probably want them to back up a little bit farther. Okay, so we have these unconscious boundaries that we place or that you guys place all day long in order to keep yourself physically safe and to allow for reaction time. So you go around all day and you're practicing these boundaries. And then you get home and your family doesn't have those boundaries. They want to like zero in and like smush you all close. The body is going to have a really difficult time flipping that switch because it's a hard switch. So if you can find more routine recovery throughout your day, and depending on what your environment looks like, maybe you don't have time to do a quick stretch, but you have 3 minutes in between each call to be breathing. That breathing is going to lower the body's system and kind of like help it get away from that arousal state. Although it's going to go right back up, you're still practicing that so that when you get home, you don't have to dip so low just to have some sort of, semblance to normal, if that's what you want to call it.
Very interesting. So you talked about like recovery throughout the day. In a perfect world, if you were queen of the law enforcement world, what would you mandate for officers or agencies? And I get it, calls and stuck on homicides and all that. Let's say the 10-hour shift looks like this. And do you take a break at lunchtime and bring people in and have 30 minutes of stretching, breathing practice, fitness, or what do you think is how do you break up that 10-hour shift so that we manage this, and do this better?
Um, I would say at the beginning of a shift, it's important to, let me say this. It's difficult when you start putting mandates on things because that puts pressure on people to do stuff that maybe they don't know how to do or that they don't want to do. People waste this and those types of things where you have like mandatory like hours that you take. Those all cost money, right?
Right.
I think it's important for every officer from the academy level to understand when you wake up in the morning, assess your organism. What are your physical and emotional needs for the day? Have you been fighting with your spouse and it's over the top? Did your sleep suck? Did you have some weird nightmare? Did you have muscle spasms? Are you feeling muscle cramps? Like, what is happening with your body? Where is your mind at? And then figure out what it is that you need throughout the day, or at least know what you're missing. Because if you're feeling a certain way and then you go to a hot call, you might find yourself kind of shocked at your angry outburst or your shortened temper or whatever. So it's important for the officer to understand, like, how are you showing up to the day? Number one. And then I think that it would be really fantastic for officers to get in more of a habit of after each call doing 10 rounds of breathing. It's going to seem super dumb and like, oh, here we go. But these are things that are informing the body to calm itself down. So when you don't have the ability to stop for an hour break, right, or a 30-minute break,
Yeah.
or your department isn't going to pay for you to take an hour at the end of your shift, this really just falls back on educating officers rather than mandating things, because that's been the whole element that's been missing is like, we're going to mandate this. And then we're like, what the fuck do we do with it? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I agree. I think mandating any kind of physical fitness mandate, I think you need to make the products, services available. The
Mm-hmm.
cops will dip their toe in the water, and
Mm-hmm.
they will find their way to what they like, that works for them. So, in my thought process, I think the folks that are out there and they're like, "Hey, if you want to work out tomorrow, I'll be at such and such substation running this workout," and you start to get this following of people that are interested. And in your specialty, the same thing. Hey, at noon, I'll be in the gym. If you want to come in, dress down, we'll get into the mat room and we'll stretch and we'll breathe it out and we'll take some time. Or, conversely too, another aspect I think is really missed is right after this really shitty call, there's a peer group that wasn't on the call that can come and just talk. Hey, me and you at the back of the cars over by the park having coffee, just talking about how fucked up this call was. But what do? We just, oh, hey, there's more calls rolling. Let's just go.
Right.
Another call, another call, another call. And so
Right.
I think these resources, and there's quite a few different ones that I look at from a retired perspective, would have helped us a little bit, kind of just having those availability of those things there in the day, or at least once in the week at some point, once, twice in the week available.
Hmm.
Some cops won't jump on it, but that culture has to change, and it has to
Right.
start at the academy.
That's actually what I was thinking the entire time is it is an academy. It is something that needs to be covered in the academy, but more importantly, it needs to be a part of administrative culture. Like if it is just a regular ass day and we know that our sergeant, our lieutenant, our major, our commander, whoever the fuck is going to start our briefing off with take out your phone and write in a few adjectives to describe how you're feeling. What's going on in your brain? You don't need to submit this to me. I don't need to fucking see it, but you need to know where you're at, right? If we have more of this checking in with people going like, hey, I had a really hard time with that call, like that was really fucked up, what do you think about it? Or being more specific about naming emotions like, hey, you seemed really frustrated when you were out there, what's going on? If we can't change administrative culture, then why is it the responsibility of the officer to understand? But the unfortunate thing is the officers are the ones that are killing themselves. We're not hearing about chiefs that are committing suicide.
Right.
We're hearing about patrolmen and women
Right.
who are committing suicide. So it has to, the culture has to change. And when I'm in my training, I identify through a show of hands who is in leadership, and I single them out. It is your fucking job to communicate the importance of brain health to your subordinates, because at the end of the day, we're not sending, and this is all based off of statistics, we're not sending officers to calls of service that feel well. We're sending
Right.
frustrated, lonely, depressive, stressed out, and anxious police officers to calls of service.
Yeah.
Who fucking wins?
Right. Exactly. And then you throw in, these other outside dynamics that are going on in the world, and it's just a time bomb. And it's, no shit, it's on CNN. What were we
100%.
what were we expecting? So my belief is this: I'm very, very hardcore about administrators. Your fucking job is to take care of your employees first, not the fucking public. And here's why.
Mhm.
Public is important. That's what you're there to do, protect and serve. But if you send out a time bomb, you've done nothing.
That's right.
You've done nothing to protect the public.
That's right.
A lot of successful businesses, and I did some research back in 2017 for a training program thing that we were working on. Why is Southwest Airlines at this time, this was a few years ago, I know things have kind of changed with COVID, there was like 5 top businesses. Why were they so successful? Richard Branson from Virgin Records, who just went up into space. Why is he so successful, and why do people love working for their companies? And it was because their motto was take care of the employee, they will take care of the customer. Period.
Yeah.
And I think administrators right now are totally missing the fucking mark. They want to please every little entity group that is upset and offended and angry, and they want to do all this, and they're just shitting on their cops. And while you're doing that, you're lighting the fuse. You're lighting the fuse. You're lighting the fuse, and you're not fixing the problem. So, um, I went on a little tangent there, but my my
Tell me
big
how
bel-
you feel about
yeah, I
it.
know
I love it.
these
But this is,
bosses. They got to own this. You're the
but this,
boss.
yeah, and this is the thing. This is why I created TacMobility. Is it's going. We have some really, really complex and intricate and why can't I say that word? Intricate social issues that we are now facing in
Hmm.
today's world. Like big, big things that were I mean, COVID really just kind of like poured lighter fluid on all of those problems and like really kind of like made everything rise to the surface. So recognizing that the world's traumas and issues are evolving into these things that are much bigger, if we can't send officers that feel up to the job, like if they just don't give a fuck about their job anymore because they know at the end of the day it's going to come down to, hey, I might get fired even if I'm operating within my guidelines, then essentially what we're doing is we're sending somebody that's going to escalate the situation rather than de-escalate. And so what we see more is that it's become a rarity for officers to feel like they made a difference or they made an impact, because it's like I'm not equipped training wise to show up to this call, but then on top of that, I feel like shit. I'm not in the fucking mood. When I do show up, they're probably going to say something stupid or take it to another level, and I've got to whatever. And then there's this factor of like, am I also being recorded? Like, there's just so many factors going on. And so, one of the things that I do is in kind of that self assessment, if you use this can as an example, if this can is your capacity to hold stress, like your physical body. Within your physical body, the different types of stress you might have might be relational, financial, um, physical tension, anxiety, whatever your personal stresses are. If you're all the way full to the tippy top of stress, how much room do you have for more, right? Not a lot. And your jobs in nature are more, 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 right?
Yeah.
15 calls a day, if that, maybe more. Okay, so it's going, if your capacity for stress is non existent, which is where a lot of officers are, then when we have these ever evolving problems that come in, how much resolution can they bring to that specific incident? I don't
Yeah.
know.
They probably don't want to problem solve. They're probably just like,
Right.
yeah, why am I fixing your bullshit? You don't even like me to begin with, and so you have those thoughts, and you're right, 100% that capacity is at max, and all of us from day one, from culture change, we have to change the capacity, and bosses have to relieve some of the workload, not put more on. This shit of another killer is do more with less. I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing that. That has been going on for so
Less.
long. Yeah, do more with less. Yeah, you're doing the job of three people. Suck it up. That's the way it is. We don't have the staffing. Well, you created the fucking staffing problem. You as a boss, you are part of the problem. So you own that. Don't put that back on your people, like do more work, pile more shit on them, more expectations. Oh, by the way, your room for error is about that much, and it's on video now. And so,
Yeah.
and if you make a mistake, we're not only going to discipline you, the days of a written reprimand are gone. We're just going to fucking fire you because that's what looks good. And so the cop is like, look, I've vested 8, 10 years in this job. I have family that might be butchered all over the news because of this thing on video. Yeah, I don't want to fucking do my job and solve your problem. Um,
Well, and creativity and compassion are like they don't coincide with hypervigilance. So creativity and compassion are associated with certain types of hormonal release as well. So it's going, if you have a body that's full of adrenaline and cortisol and you haven't practiced lowering those throughout the day, your ability to access creativity is just not there because you're fighting against science. And this
right.
is some of the new findings that we have in the world. And unfortunately, law enforcement is very far behind the rest of the world in terms of learning that. And again, time being a privilege, you all don't have that as readily accessible as the average civilian does.
For sure. So I love the chat. Very insightful. You obviously are educated in this arena very well, and you speak the language that cops can understand. So I hope that our listeners and viewers kind of find you as a resource. Where would they find you? You have a website?
I do. TacMobility.org is a good resource, but in terms of kind of like that constant or like continuing education, socials like Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, it's a way to have, it's a way to feel supported. I spend, I put a ton of energy and time into crafting every single week and focus on something specific. We have the world's largest ongoing anonymous survey of law enforcement officers and cumulative stress that any of your listeners can take if they're a sworn officer. And the information that we get from that, we post it. Like I just posted one yesterday saying that 89% of police officers um, are experiencing stress from inconsistent policies
Oh, I
and
saw that.
procedures.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's going,
that's
so you,
high.
oof. Oh,
Fuck.
it's 92, I believe it's 92% of stress comes from poor leadership.
Wow. Imagine that. Go figure. Go
Right.
figure, right? Yeah.
Right. So I am out there advocating for the officer experience because I do consults all the time where I'll give them all the information and then they come back to me and they're like, "Hey, my bosses are wanting to know like, is this really an important whatever?" And I'm going, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And I provide this data support. So the social media outlets is a way for the average police officer to feel understood, to feel supported, but then you also get this constant exposure to different ways that you can create homeostasis in your body so that it doesn't take its toll when you're at home, so that you can have this like enjoyable abundant life outside of policing and sort of place your identity in other things other than it's all about the administration, it's all about working in policing. Like it's not everything. So yeah, social media is a really great way to get connected.
Awesome. So everyone can follow you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the major stuff. You're on TikTok as well. Whatever your jam is for social media, they can go there and just take a look. You'll be impressed with the statistics, and you'll be very impressed with how Erica does things. And I've been watching you for a while, and I've been like, oh yeah, shit, that makes sense, or whatever the post is, which is why we wanted to bring you on and have a little more intimate conversation about what you do and what we can do to help cops. And I think that's both of our goals.
Thank
So
you.
love chatting with you today, Erica, the
Thank
Knife Girl. TacMobility CEO, founder, helping cops out there.
you.
Any parting words?
Recovery is no longer optional.
Recovery is no longer optional, it is a must. And let me tell you from a retired standpoint, we want to finish this career in good standings. We want to then retire and get the money and the services that are promised to us for a very long time. So dying 2 months afterwards by whatever means that this job cost you is not the goal. The goal is live a nice, healthy, happy life afterwards when it's all over, as well as sustain a
I was
nice,
gonna say
healthy
enduring,
career. Yeah,
enduring. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
career. So if you're new, you start out on the right path, not what we did 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Although policing was absolutely awesome,
It was
that
very
long ago.
different.
They're
Very
different. Times are different. So start out, maintain a good career, end on a good note, retire and be happy.
yeah.
Erica, love your stuff. Keep it up.
Thank you.
This is going to wrap up the show for Talking Filthy Police podcast. Check us out at filthypirate.coffee. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Peace out.